Righto, so here we are with our 2013 model Husaberg FE350. It's a long-term test bike, a T-ride we've got at Transmoto. We've got about 24 hours on the bike now, had it for the best part of 6 months, and just thought I'd give you a quick update where we're at with the bike in terms of what's been done to it. There is a big article in the August issue which is coming out in early July, which gives some details of what we've done. But without going into too much detail, you know, we've done a little bit of protective stuff with the chain, the sprockets, stuff that we've done in previous articles, really just to bulletproof the bike. We have done some suspension work, largely on the 4CS fork, a little bit more spring preload, some more fork oil height, and also a little bit of just basically bolstered the compression damping both in the base valve and in the mid valve, just to have it a little bit more firmness earlier in the stroke to help control the stroke. But what I'd like to talk about today is something we've done with the engine. I guess what you notice when you get off a bigger bore bike, a 500 or a 450, you get onto the 350, which for me, for all money, is by far and away, you know, the best bike in both KTM and Husaberg's range. In that it just gives you the confidence to be able to go so hard at stuff and deal with obstacles and stuff when you get there. You know, it just has incredibly light tip weight. It is only like 1.5 kilos lighter than the 450, but once you've been riding the thing, you know, a day in the saddle, and the thing could be 10 kilos lighter. But what it does have is a little bit of, I guess, lag, or just a little bit slow in the throttle pickup off the bottom. For a guy, you know, I'm 90-something kilos plus gear, more like 100. So in order to try and find a little bit of bottom end, I talked to a lot of guys. They've been putting inlet cams off 350 SXFs, which is about $200 worth plus labour, or if you're confident enough to do it yourself. Alternatively, you can put a full, you know, Akrapovic system. A lot of guys do with KTM's and Husaberg's, which is in the vicinity of $1,100 or about $800 for the muffler by itself. Not cheap. And what we wanted to do, you know, I wanted to look at the option of creating a little bit more bottom end, but also getting that adjustability. So I talked to the guys at Vortex Ignitions, Richard Merling, who's been, you know, in the game for a long time and supplying ignitions to, you know, top factory race teams around the world. I mean, for instance, he's been dealing with the Geico Honda guys, the former Factory Connection Honda guys, for a long time, and obviously won championships and races along the way in doing so. But the Vortex guys have come out with a fantastic ECU. They kicked some goals with the 350 last year, and this is obviously the KTM engine in this and the same inlet track. So what they've done is for about $750, basically you get your Vortex X10 ECU. I think I call it a CDI in a magazine, but obviously an ECU, an electronic control unit, which obviously looks after both ignition and fueling. Very easy to fit. All you got to make sure is everything is clean around the area. Your 36-point connector snaps straight into it. It comes with its own rubber mount, sits just perfectly exactly where the old CDI came from. And if you're going to get the optional bar-mounted switch, which gives you the option of a dual curve, which makes sense because really that's the adjustability that, you know, you've got 10 pre-programmed maps, you know, with the Vortex, so it makes sense to have that and unlock that potential. That comes with a polarised clip, so you've got to press out. Just got to be a little bit careful. You make sure you get it together, but really it's a 2-minute job to install. And what does it do? Well, for me it was really clear. The two main things it did. First of all, was it filled that hole in the bottom end. So these 350s really come alive and they've got a really punchy mid, but what it did is fill that hole, so it made it a bit more responsive and gave a bit more grunt through the bottom, which creates a smoother power curve. Does also give it a little bit more top end and over rev, but for most guys in the bush that's not a huge issue. The other thing they've managed to do is reduce the engine braking. So it's not a huge issue on the 350, but this year at the 2014 KTM launch I noticed that the 250, going down technical hills and in situations where you're on and off the throttle, it had the 250 four-stroke EXF was which is the same as the FE350, much less engine braking than this bike. So I did, which sort of heightened, I guess, my awareness of the fact that when you're getting on and off throttle situations, the 350 can be a little bit jerky, I suppose, in throttle response. What the Vortex does by reducing that engine braking makes the bike a lot smoother and easier to flow into corners, a lot nicer on the downhills. So that's the main curve. They create one curve. You have it up on your handlebar switch. You've got map 1. That is the Vortex curve. You then have a choice of another 9 curves. They're pre-programmed with torque, traction, etc., etc. There are also some curves pre-programmed to sort of meet various mods like mufflers, etc. And it is reprogrammable. What I've found is I've pretty much just stayed on the Vortex curve all the time because it's just such a good all-round curve. You know, the 350 is not exactly a fibre either. I do use the traction curve in situations where it's really technical or it's super sloppy, and it just sort of softens the power. Interestingly enough, on the road when you wind it on, you really don't feel a whole lot of difference when you flick between the switches, but at those partial throttle settings in the bush where you're climbing stuff, which, you know, in the bush most of the time you're at those partial throttle settings, that's where you notice a big difference. Just a lot tamer, a lot mellower. fantastic traction, and I think also probably a little bit less inclined to flame out. The one other thing, so given that you've chosen your curves, one other really cool thing with the Vortex ECU is that you've got they've got fuel control trim switches. So, you've got here low, mid, and high, 3 little trims. It's kind of cool because you guys who are used to jetting, the low, mid, and high is the equivalent really of a pilot, needle, and main jet. So you can click it in 2.5% increments just to sort of tweak your fuel around the existing ignition curve you've chosen. And it's actually quite a lot of fun. It makes it very easy. You can do it in situation in the bike. So look, for me, sort of all up about $800. Yes, about the same price as a muffler, or a good muffler. So, but I think for me, the fact that the Vortex gives you that adjustability, that it's a 5-minute job to fix, any guy can do it. And really, you carry your screwdriver around in your bum bag and you muck around, and you've got that extra tunability of the bike. It's fantastic. But like I say, we've got some more detail on what we've done to the bike, the other details, the suspension upgrades, etc. That's in the August issue, which is on sale in early July. So you go check it out.